Been a few months since I've done a reminiscing video. I usually like to get two of these out a month, but there's been a lot of footage that has just kind of been sitting on my drive, so I'm going to try and get these out at least somewhat in a more steadier fashion than per usual. Anyway, we're talking about one of my favorite games of all time here. In fact, if you were to tell me what are my top 5 favorite first-person shooters of all time, this would absolutely be on the list. This is the original F.E.A.R, and right now we're watching the game running on original Xbox 360 hardware. At the time of me recording this, Microsoft had not given this game backwards compatibility on the new Xbox Series X and Xbox One platforms. So yes, this recorded footage, and actually when I played the game, was at this point a couple of years ago. It's been a little while. But regardless, it's actually been kind of interesting because I first played this game on PC actually way back. It was actually when I built my new 4K gaming computer. It was one of those older games that I wanted to give a shot because I played the second F.E.A.R first and didn't complete it all the way, and then I played F.E.A.R 3, and I think I did a full playthrough of F.E.A.R 3 actually on the channel, but I never played the original F.E.A.R, and so I jumped into the game on PC, and it just floored me. I could not believe the sense of atmosphere, the incredible first-person shooting gunplay in this game. I mean, this game is kind of heralded as a classic. It's got one of the most robust and adaptive artificial intelligence systems I've seen in any game, and it just makes every single firefight super intense, super unpredictable, and very dynamic. It's like you actually feel like the people that you're fighting against are using every tactic that they have available to put you down, and it just makes for an incredible first-person shooting experience. This is the first time I've actually played the game on console, and this game was released, I believe, a year later on the Xbox 360, and then it took them, I want to say, a couple months to put it on the PS3, although it may have been actually simultaneously released then. And I have to say, playing this on original Xbox 360 hardware, it's a pretty great version of the original game. You know, it's running at 30 FPS at a 720p resolution here, but the actual graphics are pretty great. You still have all the dynamic lighting and shadows and all that stuff that was in the PC version. It's just that you don't have perhaps the instant response of playing with a mouse and keyboard. You're playing with a gamepad. But to be honest, the actual moment-to-moment gameplay isn't really impacted. It still feels just as intense playing with the Xbox 360 gamepad. You know, you just have to kind of contend with the fact that your aiming is slightly slower. So I actually very much enjoyed this game on the 360 and did not feel in any way that playing it on this platform was a completely different experience than playing it on PC all those years back. So that's great to hear. So why exactly is the original F.E.A.R one of my favorite shooters of all time? Well, if you actually never played this game, I'll just say that very few games match the atmosphere that the original F.E.A.R gave, in my opinion. Even still to this day, you know, we have incredible high resolution textures and we can do a lot with the detail and the density of environments, but there's something to be said about games like this that have very curated levels and do very incredible things with the lighting that, you know, at the time they were dealing with, you know, some technical limitations. This was a brand new generation of consoles that were kicking off. But the fact of the matter is that this game definitely looks its age, and we've seen more graphically complex games from around this time, absolutely. But I still feel very few ever come to match the atmosphere and incredible intensity that F.E.A.R has with its FPS gunplay. It really just comes down to the solid first-person shooting controls. Now, yes, the movement is a little bit wobbly by today's standards. You know, the game has kind of a jerkiness feeling to it almost, but you'd be surprised how quickly you can adapt to it. And once you get used to the actual movement of the game and the way it plays, the moment you get into firefights, it just all goes in the back of your mind, and you have to really quickly adapt to each situation in a very different way as well. It doesn't matter if you replay this game game 2 or 3 different times, depending on how the AI reacts to you, and even where you are, where they spawn, they will take different tactics to take you out. Now, Monolith's prior game to this was Condemned Criminal Origins, which I also did a reminiscing video for on this channel, and that was a game I played for the very first time on the original 360 and absolutely loved it. And I made a point in that reminiscing video that it felt that the AI that was used in Condemned was almost like an earlier iteration of what would become the AI that they used in F.E.A.R. And, you know, you could just see that with the way that the enemies interact with the environment. You have to keep in mind that this game, I believe, was 2005 on the PC, 2006 on the Xbox 360. And when you're looking at the AI coming at you, kicking up a table, taking cover, they're dodging in and out of windows to avoid fire from your weapon, it's just this incredible amount of versatility, and it makes each firefight feel just as intense as the last one. Again, it's just one of the more incredible experiences. There's destructible environments in here. It just doesn't get old. You can play this game all these years later and it just never ever gets old, and it's just one of those instant classics that regardless of how much time goes by, it continues to feel solid enough that I feel that anyone acclimated with today's FPSs can jump into relatively easily. And again, you know, you just have to get used to sort of the jerkiness of the movement system, but what we have here is just super exciting. And even on the 360, playing it on original hardware, it still holds up to this day. Now, if I was to have any criticisms here, I will say that the story gets slightly convoluted. It lends itself into supernatural horror. Of course, you know, the whole thing with the small girl Alma kind of following you around. Your character here starts to see things that, you know, are not there. And especially the second game in particular, which I'll review separately at some point in the future, really lends itself into the paranormal stuff. I will say that this game, this first game, feels slightly more grounded. It still delves into some of the paranormal, you know, scares and the horror and stuff like that, but for the most part, you know, you're going to be fighting soldiers here in armor, and you know, they're actual entities. They're not specters or anything like that. And I think the game just does a really great job. Again, the AI really kind of interacts with you in very interesting ways, and you'll be surprised at just how ferocious they can be, but also at the same time adaptive to your situations. So although the story can be slightly convoluted, I still feel that you're going to be mildly entertained by it, and the game doesn't waste any time with unnecessary cutscenes or anything like that. You're basically going to be playing the game level by level, killing a lot of bad guys here, kind of looking around for different items and whatnot, and then surviving your way past some very intense and brutal gunfights that are just going to have you scraping by the skin of your teeth at some points. Some people have also criticized the fact that this game is kind of a corridor-esque type of shooter, meaning that you're going to go through a lot of hallways. In that respect, I feel it's very similar to the Condemned games, where, you know, you kind of start off and you're going through some abandoned complexes. You can definitely tell that, you know, these games were made roughly at the same time, so they took a lot of inspiration probably from both environments. And, you know, the only thing with Condemned is it's more of a slower, melee-focused combat game, and, you know, this one's a fast-paced, intense shooter. But for me, it's not really much of a criticism, because I sort of look at the environments as a way of ingesting claustrophobia. Because you're so closed in, you know, you don't really have anywhere to move but forward. That just adds to the intensity and the overall horror factor of going through this game. So, you know, take it for what you will, but for me, it's not really much of an issue. I've seen some people complain about the environments feel a bit samey after a while, and yeah, I guess that's fair to say as well. You know, there isn't much really variety here, but this game to me overall is just a blast. It's an instant classic, regardless of whether you play it even on original 360 hardware, which is now backwards compatible on the new Xbox consoles, which is excellent, or on the PC, where it can basically run on integrated graphics these days. You know, you might have to do some things with, you know, adding some config files somewhere in order to get the game to run smoothly on modern hardware, but man, for the most part, this game is extremely accessible. It's now backwards compatible, which is excellent for the future. And it just makes for an incredible experience all these years later. F.E.A.R is a great time. I cannot recommend it enough. And playing it for the first time on the original 360 before it was added to backwards compatibility, it still plays like a gem, and I had a great time, and I didn't feel like anything was sacrificed in the porting of this game from PC to console. It's just as intense as it was on that platform, just a different control scheme. That's all. So if you haven't played F.E.A.R, please absolutely do, for the love of God. If there's one game I recommend, it's this one. Don't be put off by the age of its graphics or the fact that it's from 2005. You'll be surprised at just how incredibly intense and dynamic it feels, especially when compared to modern shooters. Some of them don't even hold a candle to this game's firefights. And now that it's backwards compatible, for those of you who don't have a 360, in order to enjoy this game on a console, you can now do so with the Series X or Xbox One. And it probably runs a lot better as well, considering the performance overhead of it running on the newer Xbox machines. So it'd be great. I'm actually not even sure if this game is 60 FPS boosted on the Series X, but that is something that would be great for this game if it is. I'd probably have to look into that after I upload this video, but regardless of whatever time it is, whenever you're watching this video, F.E.A.R is an incredible experience, and I highly recommend it if you haven't played it at all. And if you did play it back in the day, I would say absolutely it's worth a replay. I would love to see Monolith reboot this franchise, or just simply remake the game. I think that would be awesome. Seeing this game running on a brand new engine, but still retaining all the destructibility, the intensity of the weapons, and I think just a much more fluid and dynamic movement system would just be phenomenal. So still holding out for that eventual one day. I don't even know what Monolith is working on right now, considering that the Middle Earth franchise seems to kind of be dead, I guess, at this point. I would just love to see Monolith either return to F.E.A.R or return to Condemned. I'll take either of them, to be quite honest, but this game's just awesome. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you very much, and I'll see you for the next Reminiscing video. Take it easy.